Welcome to all of you. It's great to have you with us today. I really hope to make it worth your while. We're going to make sure that as we're teaching you some tips and tricks to designing your poster, we're covering things like considering who's going to be looking at your poster and understanding who your audience is, really trying to learn how to cut down on content. One of the toughest things when you're developing a poster. Understanding some tricks around the layout. There's some psychology around it, and we'll look at some examples as well, which you can assess. We'll be looking at the kinds of visuals to use to help attract your audience so that they want to click on your poster and then watch your video as well. And finally, some logistics of how to set it all up and submit it in time. We've had a question in chat, is it recorded? And the answer is yes. Okay, so something interesting I think to consider as you're developing your poster is that really it can perform three functions for you. It's your conversation starter. So in the case of a virtual conference like this, it's the poster that someone might click on first to have a look at. And then if they're interested, they might then click on your video to watch your pitch about it. It's an advertisement for the work that you've done to help generate interest in the hope they do want to learn more. And it really provides a really succinct summary of what your project achieves. For a lot of you, you're also probably writing sort of a final capstone report related to this, but this is the just distilled down to the core key information only. All of the detail can be explained during Q&A, in your actual paper, things like that. So keeping it succinct is super, super important. In the case of this year's Endeavour, you're particularly fortunate because we're really going to have a wider audience than you've ever been able to have before. People from the general public are going to be able to access your posters and your videos. University staff and students, of course, will go in there and have a look. But most importantly, industry professionals who maybe you're hoping to be employed by or maybe hoping to be funded by are going to have access, and not just those who are available to come to Parkville on a particular day as in previous years, but literally anyone all over Australia, all over the world. So you want this to be as engaging and as appealing as possible. This is a real chance for you all. But the trick to all of this is how do you engage? How do you allow for that range of viewers, from people who don't necessarily have a strong background in engineering, all the way up to people who are specialists in your field? How do you make it accessible to everybody? The trick is to really consider, well, what is the most interesting or useful information from our project? What do people really need to know? And what will they most want to know? So there might be a whole heap of background work that you've done that's super, super impressive that doesn't necessarily have to be on the poster because it's not actually what the audience is interested in. Doesn't mean you can't include that as part of your report, or you can keep that with you on the day when you're answering questions from the audience to provide further information for people, but some things don't necessarily need to be on the poster. You're also wanting to consider, when you decide what to include, is how to include it. So is this information best presented as text, or actually could I convert it into some kind of a graph or a chart or a graphic of some kind to make it easier for people to understand? Because remember, even if someone from industry is looking at your work, they don't necessarily have your level of specialization. That's probably why they're needing you. Because they have a different specialization to you, and so you're wanting, again, for it to be accessible to them. You don't want them to feel stupid while they're reading your poster, or feel confused and just move on to someone else's. The other trick with posters is to minimize not just the content, but within that the text itself, so that you can make use of graphics as much as possible and keep a reasonable amount of white space. It's amazing the difference some white space can have. We've heard an interesting question there, Danica, from Tom. Can the poster contain animated diagrams this year?
No, we can only upload it as a JPEG, so still pictures only.
Cool, good question though. Okay. I want you to have a look at these two posters. You don't need to be able to actually read them, so don't worry that the text is quite small. You're not needing to actually read the poster. But what I'm wanting to ask you to consider is how much content each of them has included and how easy it is or isn't to take in that text or that content. So I'll let you pause, and I'm going to get you to vote for them in just a second. Okay, to vote, I'm going to get you to click on participants again, just as you did before. If you think A has done a better job of distilling their content down, click yes. If you think B has done a better job of distilling their content down, click no. Whoa. I think it's unanimous. Yeah, I agree with you all. The fact that we can even still read a little bit of poster B, even at this small size, is a good start, isn't it? They're using things like dot points to help ideas to stand out for us. We can actually read quite a lot of the headings as well, because they've kept it kept the text minimal enough that we're still able to read it. On the left-hand poster, I really can't read those headings. I don't know what's going on in that text. There's swathes of text. It's not broken up particularly well for us. It's making it really hard for me to know exactly sort of where to place my eye. I can't scan over it quickly the way I can with poster 2, poster B. Okay, it's a good start. Thanks, everyone. We also, there's some tricks around this too. So the readability is affected by not just how many words you're including. So a little rule of thumb, if you can, for each section, if you can keep it to 50 words or less, that's going to make it easy for your audience to take in. Really consider using bullet points like we saw in poster B there on the right, because you can see how much those ideas can stand out for us. And write in plain English. The more specialist and the more complicated the idea that you're trying to express, the simpler the language should be for us to use. So for example, rather than saying like with regard to, like first of all, it's 3 words. And also it's a bit waffly. We have to spend some time taking it in. Just say about. Let's try some others. We're going to try this in the chat if we can. Can you think of some simpler alternatives for it? First of all, in the event of. Really quickly in the chat. We're going to do this as a quick fire round. If, something like that. Yeah. All right. This is going to be super quick, guys. Prior to, before. Nice. Discontinue. Stop. Just say stop. Exactly. Duration. Time, while. Yeah. Length. Yeah. Inform. Tell. Tell. Good one, guys. If this is the case. Yeah, if so. If so, that's fine. Brilliant, everyone. You've got this. That's all we need you to do. Just keep it really simple. And it doesn't dumb down your message by keeping the language simple. It makes very complex ideas very easy to understand. That's what you're wanting to do. Also, in terms of content, you want to think about how you can make best use of your headings. So if you can only fit so much text on your poster, how can you use your headings in a really clever way to help the reader know how to navigate the poster? Because some people will be more interested in certain aspects of your project than others, and the headings will help them to jump to that particular aspect. So some posters, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to follow the usual IMRAD structure. Got my introduction, my methods, my results, my analysis, my conclusions. What do you think some advantages or disadvantages of that could be? If you have any thoughts about that, can you pop it in the chat for me quickly? What do you think about using that sort of structure for your poster? Boring, Rogie says. We've seen it before, haven't we? Yeah, you lose all creativity. No different from a report. Frank says it's fine because people are used to it, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So think about it maybe in this way. So if we'll compare two posters now, one of them's using that traditional structure. Sean points out, like, at least it's in chronological order. Yeah, it's a good point. And we know how to navigate that, don't we? We know how to, where the results belong, where the method belongs, and our eye can jump to that. Sure. Let's look at these two examples. How much can you learn about these projects in just a couple of seconds of looking at them? So poster A, I don't know how well you can read that. Depends how big your screen is. I'll read out some of the headings for you just in case it's appearing strangely on your screen. So the headings are things like birds of conservation concern in decline, objective greenways for the birds, study design and independent variables, breeding birds of concern more common in wider greenways with less managed area surrounded by more forest canopy. Spring neotropical migrant stopovers more common in wider greenways with more taller hardwood trees, that kind of thing. Okay. So compare that to poster B, which is our traditional introduction methods results discussion references. Tell me, which is more useful? Which one can you learn more from in a moment of reading them? Can you click on participants for me? Yes, if you think A, I can get more information from A, or no, if you think B, I can get more information from B. Oh, it's even almost. Okay, this is super interesting. So the moment we've sort of landed on about 27 for A and 22 for B. All right, Anthony, would you mind telling us quickly, why do you think A is easier to read?
Hi there.
Hi.
I think it's because they have put basically the results of what the section is within the title. And they've highlighted it, which is probably the most important part of that section.
It's a really good point. So even if you didn't read the text below it, just by reading the heading, you understand what the result is.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Anthony. That's really, really helpful to actually. Maybe just for contrast, Emily, you're thinking B. Can you tell me why? No, maybe not. Frank, do you want to tell us why you think B?
I actually didn't say B. I agree with A.
Oh,
Yeah, it says B has references, and we don't need to show them, right, in a poster. That's why it's not suitable for these purposes. That's what I said.
oh, you're actually thinking that A is better in this case. Okay, I beg your pardon. I thought you were voting for B. Yeah, that's exactly. Fine. Your question about references, though, is a very valid one. We do, if you are citing ideas from another source, of course, we still need to reference them just as you would in a paper, but for most of these posters, all of the ideas are coming straight from the work that you've done, not from the ideas or work that others have done. So you're right, it is rarer to need references in a poster, but of course, if you're needing to cite data, maybe data that's been supplied to you by an industry sponsor or something like that, then yeah, we would still need to reference where those ideas came from or where that data came from. It's a good question, actually. Okay, so I think I'm getting the impression that there's something going on with these headings, and there's something that you might want to consider with these headings. So I won't get you to vote again for this one, but if you just want to consider, okay, well, am I going to say methods, or am I going to say measuring water flow around a pier with computer fluid dynamics? Personally, I'd get more out of option B, measuring water flow around a pier with computer fluid dynamics, because then I'd actually understand what's going on, and it's going to save you words in that particular section itself. So you're kind of getting a double advantage there. Not only are you giving your reader the answer straight up, but it also means you don't have to repeat yourself later in the content. So just something to think about. You can still use the INRAD method if you want to, but you don't have to. There's other ways. All right, so hopefully that's given you some ideas around how you can sort of distill down your content, but layout also matters. And you can use your layout in a very clever way to help your reader to navigate your poster, particularly if you're just not wanting everything to be straight kind of down the page or straight across the page or what have you. Maybe you're wanting them to pay attention to things in a certain order. I'm going to put an image on the screen in just a moment, and I want you to pay attention to where does your eye go first, and remember that, okay? Because I'm going to ask you where it went. Are you ready? Okay. Where did your eye go first? So if I split it up into these quadrants, did your eye go to, I might just clear all that. Did your eye go to the top left first? Can you click yes, click participants and click yes for me? If you went to the top left. Okay, all right, about 20 of you, thank you. Did anyone's eye go to the top right first? Okay, about 4. All right, nice one, thank you. Did anyone's eye go to the bottom left first? 1 maybe? Okay. And finally, the bottom right. Did anyone's eye go there first? 2. Okay. This is interesting. You're actually very consistent with what research suggests, which is interesting. So in an eye tracking study that looked at where our eyes naturally go, they suggest that our eyes go sort of where the intersections are there, so where those lines intersect, where those circles are there. So 41% of viewers in that particular study looked to that sort of top left side first, which actually was close to what you were all suggesting. And then sort of 20, 25, 14 after that, which again is very similar to what you just suggested to me. The other thing that's interesting with this is that the comprehension from the viewer who's looking at your poster is better when the ideas are laid out in a zigzag pattern like this. So I might go to that top left corner first, then it might move across and down and down. So that could be something that you want to take into consideration when you're designing your poster. Something to think about. Thanks for those who annotated on there. Actually, that was really handy just now. Good for you. What do you notice then about the balance of these two posters? So we're thinking about the graphic to text balance. So you're not wanting too many graphics and not enough text, and you're also not wanting too much text and not enough graphics. So we'll go to participants again. If you think the poster A is more balanced, can you click yes? If you think poster B is more balanced, click no. Oh, while you're doing that too, there's some helpful comments in the chat pointing out that actually some people's eyes didn't go to a particular corner, it went to the center. Yeah, which is interesting too. Maybe you were closer to those intersections rather than the far corners. Good point. And maybe you can take that into consideration too. I've seen some great posters at Endeavour over the years where they've got a really eye-catching image right smack bang in the center of the poster. Danica's nodding. There's been some good ones, hasn't there? And then maybe the ideas go in that zigzag pattern. So this is the way you're wanting them to engage with it, but that image is there to catch their eye. Okay, it looks like the voting's in. Yeah, overwhelmingly, I think you're saying the balance is better for poster B. And I think most of us would probably agree with you, actually. There's a lot more white space going on with poster B as well. They do still have some images, but you know, they're not taking over, they're not too distracting. The image actually in poster A, particularly the large one in the background, it's almost making the text a little bit hard to read as well. So that contrast is missing, whereas poster B is allowing for that. Is there anything else that anyone else has noticed about those that you want to point out?
Someone's just pointed out that the colour is annoying in B. I just want to say, good point. Use colours that are pretty neutral, but every year people tend to go for university blue. I'm going to challenge you to not do that because it's not a poster produced by University of Melbourne, so you definitely don't have to brand it that way. So it'd be more interesting to see a lot more colours than just royal blue.
Good one. Oh, Tom suggests that poster A has more graphics and they seem more interesting and varied. Yeah, okay. That's an interesting point. And actually, I think some students in the past have commented to me that they feel like the images in poster A look more relevant. They don't look like they're just placeholders or decorative images. They look like they're purposeful images. So of course that's a consideration as well. But what we're thinking about now, you can imagine if poster A, if we're liking the way that they've used the use of images there, how can we get better balance? So how can they cut down their text a little bit? How can they use better headings, more bullet points, things like that to space it out, have a little bit more white space to make it easier to read? That might end up being the more outstanding poster if they're able to do that. Demi makes a point too that the boxes around the sections in poster B makes it easier to separate those different ideas. So it's an interesting technique that they've used. There's a question about the university logo too, Danica.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to use a university logo. You can use industry logos if you have permission, written permission from whoever you're partnering with, but not the uni one.
Good question. And then Kit points out that A just feels a little bit too wordy. And I think that's fair. Okay, thanks everyone. All right, so you've probably got a lot of data behind some of your projects, and you might want to include a graph or a figure or a chart as part of your poster. I think you've probably gotten quite good at this, I'm hoping, over the years of writing reports and including data in your reports. But just as a quick impression, which of these two graphs is clearer to you? Actually, I'll better clear Yep, go for it. A, yes. B, no. Okay, looks like B is clearer. Can anyone tell me why? You can pop it in the chat if you like, or unmute yourself and let us know. B, because the x-axis is less busy. Yeah, the color contrast yellow on gray isn't clear. I agree. I'd really avoid that if, yeah. The color scheme Xavier says as well as Evan, yeah. Yeah, Nuha agrees. Contrast of colors is better in B. But graph A has grid lines. Yeah, that's a really good point, Nuha. Sean says it's clearer which line is for which population. Yeah, because they've actually labeled them. Yeah. So you could combine all of these ideas to make sure that your graph is as clear as it possibly can be. And I think remember that it's very easy, I think, for when you're so close to a project and you've spent so much time on it, you understand it so well, and remembering that the people you're showing this to have no idea about it at all, and it wouldn't hurt actually to kind of run it by a few people, particularly if someone who is a layman who doesn't know anything about your project, maybe even isn't an engineer, to give you some feedback. It might be really helpful. The vertical axis is clearer in B. Okay. Yeah, I think a few of us agree. Nice one, guys. All right. We want to think about font when you're designing your poster as well. I love this quote. No one has ever complained that someone's poster is too easy to read. Okay. So anything you can do to make your poster clear and easy to follow, your audience will thank you. There are some things to consider in terms of size. So even though it's going to be electronic, or actually because it's going to be electronic, we need it to be really clear and really easy to read. Yes, people will be able to zoom in and out, but you don't want them to have to do a lot of zooming in and out, moving across to be able to navigate through your whole poster. That'll be really frustrating for them. And as you've already seen, admittedly, like the size of these posters kind of shrunk for your screen, but it's frustrating, isn't it, when you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to read that, I have to zoom in. So anything you can do to kind of keep those font sizes at a reasonable size will be really helpful. Of course, include all of your details below your title. If you're thinking the difference between, like, do I use a serif font? Do I use a sans serif font? So a serif font is, you know, there's kind of older school fonts that have like the little curly bits attached to them, whereas the serif font, like actually this is a serif font that you're seeing here, is that kind of cleaner, more modern look. So are you going for a more traditional look? Are you going for a more modern look? There's some things to think about too if you're wanting your font to be really accessible. The British Dyslexia Association have some recommended fonts that they've found to be more readable for people with dyslexia, for example, so you might want to consider some of those. I don't want to have to say this, but one year I actually saw a team who'd made this really wonderful poster, really wonderful actually. They'd followed all the rules to a T, but they'd used Comic Sans font. And it was only a couple of years ago now, and I've never forgotten it. And I've vowed to always say it in this session, because I didn't say it because I assumed it was known never to use Comic Sans for something professional like this. But yeah, just to be sure. Definitely not. Danica's made the really good point that when you're choosing your color palette, definitely go with something other than the university colors. And so I've provided some websites here. Actually, I might even copy them for you into the chat, just to give you some alternatives, because these websites are actually really handy for creating unique color combinations or attractive color combinations, complementary color combinations for you, because we're not necessarily designers and we don't necessarily know what colors go well together, but some people who are very good at this have done this for us. And I'll also share with you these websites for fonts as well, if you're looking for something that's not available through the operating system that you're using or the software that you're using. But regardless, use something consistent. So pick sort of 2 colors, maybe 3 colors max, and just use them really consistently across your poster. And Danica's right, they'll stand out more if they're not the standard University of Melbourne colors. All right, let's bring all of this together. I want to get your impression of these final 2 examples. While you're looking at them, ask yourself, what do I like about them? What would I improve about them? And I'd love to hear your vote. So yes for A, no for B. So thinking about the visuals now, thinking about the layout. Maybe there's aspects of both that you like and both that you don't like. You can pop some ideas in the chat there as well. Oh, Aidan makes a good question, Danica, about portrait versus landscape.
Yeah, I was just responding, but we recommend landscape, so there's less scrolling up and down on a computer screen. But again, if it works better in portrait, then go portrait.
Cool. In the future too, if you ever, if you get to create a poster for a conference, like a physical conference, the landscape works really well in that format too, doesn't it? Because you can have kind of multiple people looking at the poster at the same time, and no one particular person is blocking the whole view of the poster as they would if it was portrait. So it's a good thing to get used to. Yeah, Georgie makes a point. Image B, it takes up a lot of space. The picture takes up a lot of space on the poster, so you're really having to cut down on content. You're kind of sacrificing content for this wow factor hot air balloon. I think the votes on the participant list are actually quite relatively even, but I think the comments are way more interesting. A is better because of the colors. So you're liking the colors there, the kind of the black with the blue and the yellow. Okay. Rather than the red. And again, show your poster to a few different people and get their impressions of it as you're putting it together. Matthew makes a nice balance. So A has better formatting, but too many words. B has less words, but more visuals. Not as good formatting. Okay. I feel like I know where to read when I'm looking at B. I know that I'm looking kind of down the page. Yeah, the text could be in more dot points for A because there's some big blocks of text there. It's a really good point. The shape of the text, Emmy says, in poster B is a little bit difficult to follow. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? So they've used that wow factor hot air balloon. It's caught our eye, but then we don't know what to do after that point, or it's frustrating us after that point. I'll let you read through those comments yourselves as well. There's some really great ones there. Yeah, Penny makes a good point actually about poster A. Sort of, it feels chaotic and your eyes get lost. And I agree. I've sort of looked at this poster quite a lot and looked at it close up as well. And I agree with you. I don't really know what order to read everything in and what I'm paying attention to or not. And I'm losing my way. I feel like I accidentally skip things. Hopefully just reading each other's messages is useful too, because you're getting an impression of how others are perceiving the poster. So it's not just your point of view, but you're really wanting it to be appealing to a wide range of people. Yeah, that font size has to stay large, doesn't it, Kweku? You're absolutely right. In some ways, you're at an advantage this year in the fact that you're designing a poster digitally that's then also going to be presented digitally. So you're always getting a real impression of how readable it is on the screen. And certainly like landscape for a computer screen is perfect as well. So the less you're needing to zoom in and out to be able to read your poster, the less someone else is going to have to do that too. It's harder to perceive it sometimes when you're needing to print it later to see, well, what will that actually translate to in a printed format. Thanks, everyone. They're really helpful insights. We had a question earlier about preferred software. I think Danica made a really good point in your response that PowerPoint does the job quite adequately. Is that right?
Yes, it does. If you just want to drag and drop something on the screen, it works fine. Probably don't use Word. Everyone knows that if you move something in Word, everything else moves, and then you're going to have a nightmare. So PowerPoint to just drag and drop.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And PowerPoint's gotten so much better over the years too. Like they've got some really nice color palettes that you can choose from, and all the fonts that you need are there. They've got some great icons as well that you can use now. Oh, the third software, it's called Pexels. Oh no, sorry, not Pexels. That's a photo software. Picture Chart. It's particularly useful if you're creating like infographics. Canva's used a lot for posters, but it's going to be more challenging when you start getting a lot of text on your poster, whereas PowerPoint's going to be more forgiving for that. But Canva's going to give it more of a designed look. So something to think about is if you want to use PowerPoint because of the ease of use and that drag and drop, there's benefits. But maybe if there's some particular, maybe if there's a flow chart or a diagram or some kind of image or something like that you're needing to creating that in Canva, saving that as an image, and then inserting that into your PowerPoint could be a nice use of the two technologies together. So you get the benefits, the design benefits of Canva, but the workability that you need from PowerPoint. Does anyone have some other recommendations or anything else you've considered using? Oh, okay, Miro. Lavanya, can you tell us a little bit about that? What's the advantages of Miro? Inkscape as well, Lucid Charts. Oh, LaTeX, yeah. Does anyone want to share some insights into the benefits of those? Ah, it's great for collaboration, which you're needing to do. Okay. Of course, with your PowerPoint too, if you're saving it in a shared folder using the university Office subscription, again, everyone should be able to collaborate in real time, ideally. Oh, there's a lot of icons and chart templates too. That's always handy. Nice. Great. Definitely something to consult your whole team with, because of course you're wanting everyone to contribute on this. You don't want to have like a really steep learning curve just to be able to make the poster. You want something that everyone can get stuck into straight away. But certainly, I mean, if it's something that you're all willing to have a go with and you're comfortable with it, why not? As long as once you're done, you can convert it to the right format, you'll be fine. Oh, thanks, Tom. Vector graphics. Okay, and the scaling is good too. That's good to know. Thank you. So there's some details around the logistics. So no printing this year, but you are needing to upload it. You've got your special portal to upload it to by Friday, the 9th of October. you're needing to include everyone's details on that, and it needs to be a JPEG file or a PNG file. Oh, actually, that's still true, right, Danica? Yeah,
right.
cool. Does anyone have any questions about the logistics of preparing it and uploading it?
So I sent out an email last week about accessing your exhibition portals. Again, please try and do that now and not 2 minutes before your deadline. You can troubleshoot anything. If you can't access it for any reason, please try and do it now and let me know if there's any issues and I can help with that.
Oh, there's a really good question from Tim. So in previous years, we've needed to keep like a 5mm border around the edge of the poster for printing. Is that still the case?
You don't need to, but if you want a white border, then you can have a white border, but it's not required this year.
Cool. So we can have the color can go right to the edge if we need to. All right. Great question, Tim.
I don't know about your unit specifically. We're not grading it, but if it's part of your unit requirement, the best person to ask would be your project supervisor. I don't think that they generally grade your posters, only your actual presentation, but you have to check that with your specific marker.
Some disciplines do grade the poster as well. I know in, I want to say, I don't know if it's all of EMI, but certainly mechanical in the past have graded both. Don't know. Maybe not. But check. Ah, Frank's asked a good question there too.
I can share some examples of some ones that we have last year, but because they were sent to us, it's not publicly downloaded anywhere or anything, but I can just send you a couple of examples of ones with really clear writing or some with maybe too much writing, and then that way you can have a look. Because I know that posters are a little bit different to your standard flyers just because you do have to add a lot of content. But again, as Ariana mentioned, go with dot points. That's completely fine. It's not an essay, so don't even try to write it like an essay.
If it's useful as well, actually, at last year's exhibition, I got permission from some student groups to, they recorded a little video for us answering some questions, talking about how they designed their poster and how they expect people to read it and things like that. And they signed a waiver agreeing to have that shared. So maybe if I share those links to those videos with Danica, if you think they're suitable, then feel free to share them with the group as well. So in addition to this recording, maybe we can make these slides available as well, if that's useful, or just the recording?
So I will upload this workshop onto the Endeavour website, so not Canvas. We don't use Canvas for this, and it takes a couple of days for the team to upload it, so check that maybe next week. And the other resources like posters, templates, PowerPoint presentation, I'll send by a direct email rather than uploading.
Ah, cool. Great. Great questions, everybody. Hopefully that's given you some tips to keep up your sleeve around how you can engage your audience, how you can cut down your content, organize your layout, have some balance there, include some visuals and the logistics of getting it all together. We're having another session in 2 days' time to give you some tips and tricks on how to talk about your poster, because you're needing to record a little spiel about you presenting your work, and also some tips on how to engage during the Q&A portion of the day. So that's happening on Thursday. Did you want to ask either of us any more questions while we're here though?
Endeavour risk assessment. No, you don't attach the Take 5 document. You just pull out anything that's useful. So just literally copy and paste any hazards that are relevant and then assess the risk accordingly. As Deanna did mention last week, you can purely just look at the Take 5 poster. Don't strain yourself too much about having to come up with any other hazards and all that. So most of the stuff could be there for you already. The website, I think I did a screen share last time. So it's a standard website. It will look like, you know, your project title at the top, your project video, your description. and then there'll be all your team photos, and your project will literally just be uploaded smack bang on the screen just at the bottom of your page. The poster is now due on the 9th of October, so you don't have to get that ready by the 18th anymore. That just gives you a little bit more time. So your things due on the 18th is your risk assessment, your Road to Endeavour video, your data consent form, and also your project titles. So if you have any changes to your project titles, you can just update that in the Endeavour portal, and we'll make sure that's what's showing on the program book. For the presentation, can we refer to things like slides rather than the poster? Yeah, since we're not printing out your poster, you won't really have your poster to refer to anyway, so you can definitely change your Zoom into a screen share like Ariana's doing now, where she's showing her PowerPoint screen. You can definitely do that. It doesn't have to be just your face the whole way through the video. So you can definitely cut together a lot of different things, other meetings with your team members, interviews, clips of you working on your project model if you have one. So it doesn't have to be just, your talking head. It can definitely be a mismatch of anything that you find relevant. The data consent form, I sent it to everybody by email. If you're missing that, can you send me an email at the endeavour-msc at Unimail, and then I can send you another one. Monday the 14th. That's not a date that I know of. Maybe I asked for the title by Monday the 14th, but Friday the 18th is fine too. So just update your project title, your description. I know it's still changing, so you still have a bit of time to do that. The next session is on Thursday. Sorry if I wrote October. It's this coming Thursday.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, everyone. I think I was getting confused between Friday the 9th of October and then I wrote October again. No, it's not. It's September. I'm so sorry. This Thursday the 10th of September. I was getting ahead of myself. Thank you for pointing that out.
The data consent form, you can fill that out privately. So it just means that we can display the content that you are sending us. So things like your photos, your headshots of the team members, the videos that you send, that just allows us to post that online. So that's what the media consent means. Yeah. I think that was it.
No more questions there? All right. Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure having you all join us. Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your engagement. It's been great hearing your insights about these posters, and I hope these tips help you to get stuck into your design over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you back with us in 2 days' time on Thursday, the 10th of September.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.